Yes, I think this is one of the classic examples. In 1940, Halifax, who was then the British Foreign Secretary, wanted to negotiate with Mussolini, and Churchill and Attlee and Greenwood, the other Labour member of the War Cabinet, were against. And Chamberlain started off favouring Halifax's position. And they had 9 meetings of the War Cabinet. Churchill, in his memoirs, said, never was the subject of peace or negotiations on the agenda of the cabinet. Quite right. The agenda was so secret there was no agenda. But it's amazing, really. But Churchill understood that it was not opening negotiations with Mussolini. It was opening negotiations with Hitler. And the first demand would be a ceasefire. And remember, Germany was around Dunkirk and deep into France. And you would have had great difficulty if you'd had a ceasefire in starting the war again. And we'd have had terms dictated by Hitler. So it was a crucial moment in the war. And eventually, Chamberlain came to see it the same way as eventually Chamberlain came to see it the same way as Attlee and, of course, Churchill. And it was an important change of position for Chamberlain, because he died a few months later of stomach cancer. But to some extent, it alleviated the sort of very bad policy of appeasement of Hitler.
Are Britain and Europe facing a pivotal moment now, perhaps not to the same scale, but still very important?
Brexit is a challenge for the UK, and it's also a challenge for the EU. I was a Brexiteer, and I've been a long-standing European all my life, and resigned on the issue on a couple of occasions. I think the thing that has destroyed the Europe, which I hope would be one of a social market, has been the Eurozone and the appalling unemployment rates that have been in many countries tolerated by heads of government, and the complete refusal to grapple with the need for Eurozone reform. That's what drove me to say it's better to get out and have more of a world economy and take some of the disadvantages over the next few years for substantive gains, I think, later on.
Gibraltar is, of course, affected by this all. Is there a danger of us becoming a pawn in a larger game?
I profoundly hope not. I mean, I was very much involved in Spain coming into the European Union, and I was president of the Council of Foreign Ministers in '77. I went to see the King, and I went to see Felipe González and Suárez, the Prime Minister, and told them that we just met in Leeds Castle. Greece would come in first, and then Portugal and Spain would come in. And it took a few more years, but that was the basic decision. And I've always thought it was a tremendous thing that we made that enlargement really for political reasons. And 3 countries that had had great difficulty, the Greeks with the junta, the Spanish with from Franco, and the Portuguese too. And I think Spain has done fantastically well, and I think has built a very strong democracy. And so I am hopeful that they will treat this as, an ongoing issue, but understanding, and there will be none of the traumas. The last time I was here in this house, actually, was 1969 when I was Minister for Navy, and that was not a happy time in relations. And seeing how much they've improved, it seems to me absurd to think that people want to go back in history and back in time. Spain is now a very modern, highly successful country, had difficulties, of course, with the Eurozone, and still has difficulties. I think they'll see their biggest issue, which is to be able to remain in the Eurozone. I think the Eurozone will become smaller, it will be reformed, it will be more disciplined, and Spain will, I think, try very hard to be a member of that core Eurozone, and I hope they'll succeed.
As Foreign Secretary, you had dealings with Gibraltar. In fact, the government that you formed part of is not remembered particularly fondly in Gibraltar, associated with the Hattersley Memorandum, which suggested Gibraltar's future lay with Spain, and your own participation in the Strasbourg talks, where it's reported that joint sovereignty was mooted. How would you answer these criticisms, and has your view changed?
My view not changed, and joint sovereignty wasn't mooted, and Hattersley Memorandum took place before I became Foreign Secretary. I watched very carefully the situation in Gibraltar, and we played it within the context of Spain coming into the European Union. It was obviously going to take time, but I believe that was a period where there were neither any great changes except for a warming up of relations between Britain and Spain. And that started under my period when I was Foreign Secretary, as I say, when I went to Madrid in '77. From then on, I believe relations were positive, and Spain had bigger things on their agenda, and that's what I still do. Look, I come from West Country, Plymouth. I know, I was Minister for the Navy. I know this relationship pretty well, and I'm a great sailor, and I fish in the waters of each other's seas, and we are now going to take back fishing. For example, there are historic Spanish rights in fishing, historic French rights in fishing. I'm sure we'll honor those, and we'll accept historic happenings, and I believe that Spain will do the same. If they don't, well, we'll play with that when it comes, but I think we should not be foretellers of gloom. It's a very different world that we all live in now to when things were bad in '69. So I look on huge changes. I know from Gibraltar's point of view, you're bound to be anxious. I don't expect you to be anything else. And I don't want to be over-optimistic, but I believe the world is different, and I believe Spain is a hugely more self-confident country, and self-confidence allows you to deal with these problems and keep them in their proper position historically and in the modern world.
What is it like coming to Gibraltar at this time when it faces these pressures once again, along with Brexit?
Well, as I said, I'm not convinced you do face these same issues. I believe the world changes, and we must all change with them. And we make accommodations, we make understandings, we start to live together. We've been working together very well ever since Spain came into the European Union. Britain is leaving for understandable reasons, but that doesn't mean we're leaving Europe. It doesn't mean, as I said, that we're not going to go on having close relations. Spain is going to want to fish in what will become British waters, so will France, and we will encourage that, and we will accept that. And we'll be the managers of the fishing regime, but we will not excluding people. And the same is, we're going to be allies in many different areas of activity. I fail to believe. We also purchase a great many Spanish products. The world is different. We've lived in a market together, and I believe we'll go on being in a market together. It'll just be, as far as British is concerned, a more global market.
And very briefly, how have you enjoyed the festival so far?
Lovely. It's very nice to be back, and it's been a very enjoyable time.